My parents told me I was a failure for leaving the family business. Now I own one they couldn't even get into. The smell of coffee and printer ink marked my earliest memories of Thompson Travel Company. While other kids played at the park after school, I alphabetized brochures of exotic destinations I'd probably never see. The dusty globe in the corner was my playground, the faded posters of tropical beaches my imaginary escape. "Careful with those Caribbean catalogs, Mia," my mother would say, barely looking up from her phone call with Mrs. Henderson, discussing the same Alaskan cruise package she'd booked for 3 years running. "They're expensive to replace." Our family business occupied the corner unit of a strip mall that had seen better days. Sandwiched between a laundromat and what was once a video rental store, now a vape shop, Thompson Travel had the weathered charm of a business, surviving on loyal clients and stubborn tradition. My grandfather started it all in 1967, when traveling required expertise, connections, and someone to untangle the mess of international bookings. My father joined in the 80s, and my mother came along through marriage. The agency was our inheritance, our legacy, our dinner table conversation every night. "Mr. Abernathy is taking his wife to Rome for their 40th, Dad would announce over meatloaf. I suggested that little hotel we have a relationship with near the Spanish Steps. This was the Thompson way: personal recommendations, handwritten thank you notes, and Christmas cards to clients who'd been with us since before I was born. Our database wasn't digital. It was a collection of color-coded folders in metal filing cabinets that groaned when opened. When I was 16, I built them a website. They reluctantly agreed, but insisted on keeping the animated GIF of a plane circumnavigating a globe that made the page load agonizingly slow. The site looked like it was built in 1998, which was perfect because their business model hadn't changed since then either. People want the personal touch, my father insisted whenever I suggested we needed to modernize. They want someone who remembers their anniversary, who knows they prefer an aisle seat, who can call the hotel manager directly when something goes wrong. I didn't disagree with the sentiment, I disagreed with the method. By my senior year of college, I'd majored in computer science with a minor in business. I saw how Airbnb was changing accommodations, how mobile check-ins were streamlining airports, how recommendation algorithms were personalizing everything from music to food delivery. Travel was next, but my parents refused to see it. "I've been thinking about what I want to do after graduation," I said during a rare Sunday dinner at home. I'd prepared my pitch carefully, created mock-ups, even drafted a business plan. My mother passed the potatoes. "We've already cleared out the back office for you. Your father wants you to take over the corporate accounts. It's about time we expanded that segment." "Actually," I said, placing my tablet on the table, "I want to build something new." I turned the screen toward them, showing the prototype interface I'd been developing. It's a travel assistant app. It uses AI to learn user preferences and make personalized recommendations. It can handle bookings, manage itineraries, even process visa applications. The silence that followed wasn't contemplative, it was dismissive. Dad chuckled first, then Mom joined in, full-throated laughter that made me shrink in my seat. "So, you want to be another dropout with a failed app idea?" Mom wiped a tear from her eye. "Do you know how many of these tech startups fail in the first year?" "I'm not dropping out. I'm graduating. And I've done the research. The market is." "The market," my father interrupted, "is relationships. It's trust. It's expertise. Not some algorithm telling people where to go." "That's exactly what it is," I insisted, my voice rising. "But faster, more personalized, and available 24/7 in their pocket. People don't want to book a once-in-a-lifetime trip on their phone," Mom said, her voice hardening. "They want guidance from someone who's been there." And what if the app could provide that too? What if it could connect them with local experts, offer insider tips, customize itineraries based on interests, not just the hotels that give you the biggest commission? Dad's face reddened. "That's unfair, Mia. We recommend what's best for our clients." "From a catalog of options from 2010, I muttered. "You know nothing about running a real business," he shot back. "You think some fancy code can replace decades of experience? Go ahead and try. When you fail, don't come crawling back expecting us to save you." Mom's expression softened slightly. "Honey, we're just worried. The travel industry is tough. We've survived because we know what works. These tech ideas come and go, but personal service is timeless. I looked at them both, the people who taught me to dream of distant horizons but couldn't see the one right in front of them. The world is changing. If Thompson Travel doesn't change with it, there won't be a legacy to protect. Then maybe you should stay and help us protect it, Dad said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request, it was an ultimatum. That night, I made my decision. I would build my future, not inherit theirs. I would prove that innovation didn't have to erase tradition, it could transform it. What I didn't know then was how complete the break would be. Or that 3 years later, they'd be the ones desperately knocking on my digital door, seeking entrance to a world they'd mocked me for believing in. My father didn't look up from his computer when I cleared out my desk. The small collection of belongings, a Stanford mug, a few tech magazines, the ergonomic keyboard I'd bought myself, fit into a single cardboard box. 3 years of working summers and holidays at Thompson Travel, and my presence was barely a footprint in the worn carpet. Your client files are organized, and I've left notes on the Jensen's anniversary trip, I said to the back of his head. They're still undecided about that Danube cruise. He grunted in acknowledgement, fingers still tapping away at an email I could see he was struggling to format. I resisted the urge to help. That instinct, to fix, to improve, to update, was precisely what had created this chasm between us. Mom was with a client in the small conference room we grandly called the Planning Lounge. Its walls were lined with framed maps and photos of my parents with satisfied customers in front of landmarks around the world. There was even one of 3-year-old me sitting on the Trevi fountain while Dad held my hand, one of our rare family vacations that doubled as a research trip. I waited until the client left, a heavy Caribbean cruise booklet tucked under her arm. I'm heading out, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom glanced at the box in my arms, then at her watch. It's only 2 o'clock. I mean for good, Mom. I've accepted that seed investment I told you about. I'm moving to San Francisco next week to start building Wanderly. Her face fell, then hardened. So that's it? You're just walking out on the family? On everything we've built? I'm not walking out. I'm building something new. Something that could even help agencies like ours eventually. Don't. She held up her hand. Don't pretend this isn't a betrayal, Mia. Your father and I gave you everything, a secure future, a respected business. And you're throwing it back in our faces for some tech fantasy. The bell above the door jingled as a middle-aged couple walked in. Regular clients, the Petersons. They'd been coming to Thompson Travel since before I was born. We'll talk about this at home, Mom hissed, plastering on her client's smile. Hello, Diane.
Bob.
How was Portugal? But we didn't talk about it at home.
Not really.
The conversation devolved into accusations from them and defenses from me. Words like ungrateful, naive, and foolish were thrown around like confetti at a parade celebrating my apparent failure to be. When this falls apart, Dad said as I loaded my suitcase into my car the following week, don't expect us to have your job waiting. I don't expect anything from you anymore, I replied, the words tasting bitter and liberating at once. Except maybe that you might someday be proud of me for taking a risk. Pride comes after success, not before, he said, turning back toward the house without a goodbye. That was the last conversation we had for a full year. San Francisco welcomed me with fog and outrageous rent prices. The tiny bedroom I could afford in a share Victorian in the Mission District had peeling paint and questionable heating, but it also had something Thompson Travel never offered: possibility. My roommates were a UX designer named Parker and a data scientist named Ria, both working for startups themselves, both willing to trade expertise for equity in my fledgling company. We converted our living room into a makeshift office, covering the walls with sticky notes and wire frames. The seed money, $250,000 from a small angel investor who'd made his fortune in hotel booking software, stretched thin across San Francisco's expensive ecosystem. We lived on ramen and ambition, coding late into the night after our day jobs. The first version of Wanderly was ugly but functional. It could import travel preferences, scan for flight deals, and generate basic itineraries. We launched it to crickets. 27 downloads in the first month, mostly from friends and family, none from my parents. We need to pivot, Ria suggested after our third consecutive week of dismal metrics. The algorithm is solid, but the market positioning is wrong. We're trying to be everything to everyone. She was right. We were drowning in the vast ocean of travel apps, indistinguishable from 100 other startups with similar ideas. I thought of my parents' business, how they'd survived by knowing exactly who their customers were. What if we focus on digital nomads first? I suggested. People who travel while working remotely. They have specific needs: reliable Wi-Fi, workspaces, longer stays, visa requirements. Parker nodded enthusiastically. They're tech-savvy early adopters who travel constantly. Perfect test users. We rebuilt Wanderly from the ground up, focusing exclusively on the growing remote work movement. We added features like co-working space ratings, visa duration tracking, local SIM card information, and community reviews specifically for digital nomads. This time, when we launched, people noticed. A popular digital nomad blogger with 500,000 followers featured us in her Essential Tools newsletter. Overnight, our user base jumped from fewer than 100 to more than 10,000. Servers crashed. Parker didn't sleep for 48 hours straight. The feedback was intoxicating. Finally, an app that understands how I travel just saved me hours of research on Portugal's D7 visa. Found the perfect 3-month apartment in Bali through Wanderly's recommendations. When TechCrunch ran a small feature on us as an emerging player in the travel tech space, I sent the link to my parents' email. No response. 6 months later, we closed our Series A round, $4.5 million in funding from Horizon Ventures, a VC firm specializing in travel and lifestyle technology. The term sheet was signed in a glass-walled conference room 28 floors above San Francisco, with a view of the Bay Bridge stretching into the distance. To Wanderly, said Monica Chun, our lead investor, raising a champagne flute. And to Mia Thompson, who's reinventing travel planning for the modern age. As we celebrated, my phone remained silent. No congratulatory call. No text. The people who had taught me to dream weren't interested in witnessing mine come true. That night, alone in my new apartment, I'd finally moved out of the shared Victorian. I scrolled through my contact list and hovered over Mom and Dad. My thumb trembled above the call button. Pride and hurt battled within me. Before I could decide, an email notification popped up on my screen. Another press mention: Travel Tech's rising star, how Wanderly is disrupting the industry. I closed my contacts and opened the email instead. I told myself I didn't need their approval anymore. I had validation from users, investors, and the market. I was building something valuable, something transformative. But still, as I fell asleep that night in my quiet apartment, part of me wished they could see what their daughter had created, wished they could understand that I hadn't rejected their legacy, but reimagined it for a world they refused to acknowledge was already here. The Wanderly headquarters in Soma looked nothing like Thompson Travel Company. Instead of faded posters and brochures, our walls featured digital displays showing real-time user engagement maps and testimonials streaming in from around the world. The coffee still smelled the same, though some traditions were worth keeping. Mia, you need to see this, called Ria, now our chief data officer, gesturing me over to her standing desk. We just hit 1 million active users. A cheer erupted across the open office space where 30 employees, up from our original 3, were building the future of travel technology. Parker high-fived the UI team that had been refining our experience for the corporate travel expansion. 1 million users. I thought about the handwritten client ledger my grandfather had kept, now stored in my parents' attic. How many travelers had Thompson Travel served in its 50-year history? 10,000? Maybe 20? The corporate travel module launches next week. I reminded everyone once the celebration died down. Let's make sure it's flawless. These enterprise clients won't be as forgiving as our nomad community. We discovered something remarkable about a year into Wanderly's growth. Digital nomads talked. A lot. On forums, in co-working spaces, at meetups in Chiang Mai and Medellin and Lisbon. And many of them were consultants or employees of large companies that still booked travel the old way, through agencies or clunky corporate platforms. Our opportunity was clear: bring Wanderly's personalized, AI-driven experience to business travel. Let the road warriors of consulting firms and sales teams enjoy the same seamless experience as our core users. IBM signed on first, followed by Deloitte, then a cascade of tech companies eager to offer a travel perk that actually made their employees' lives better. Our B2B revenue eclipsed our consumer business within 2 quarters. Fast Company wants to profile you for their Innovators Under 30 issue, said Marcos, our newly hired PR director. They're calling you the face of travel's digital revolution. I laughed. Bit dramatic, don't you think? Not really, Marcos replied, sliding a tablet across my desk. On it was a graph showing the declining revenue of traditional travel agencies over the past 5 years, juxtaposed against the rising fortunes of platforms like ours. You're not just building a company, Mia. You're reshaping an industry. The photo shoot took place on a rooftop in the financial district, San Francisco, spreading out behind me like a kingdom I'd somehow claimed. The stylist dressed me in a blazer that cost more than my first month's rent in the Mission. The photographer asked me to look visionary but approachable. When the issue hit newsstands, I bought 3 copies. One for my office, one for my apartment, and one that sat on my kitchen counter in a shipping envelope addressed to Thompson Travel Company. I never sent it. Instead, I threw myself into our next frontier: luxury travel. The playground of the ultra-wealthy remained one of the few segments still dominated by high-end agencies offering white-glove service. If we could crack that market, we have the entire travel spectrum covered. The key is exclusivity with scalability, I explained to our product team. Luxury travelers want to feel special, but we need to deliver that feeling efficiently. We developed Wanderly Elite, an invitation-only tier with concierge-level service powered by a combination of AI and actual human experts we hired from top luxury agencies. The human touch my parents had always preached, amplified by technology they'd never embraced. When Rihanna's assistant used Wanderly Elite to coordinate a last-minute yacht excursion in the Greek islands, complete with privacy measures to avoid paparazzi, the luxury travel world took notice. Soon, we were handling arrangements for celebrities, tech billionaires, and old money families who'd previously relied exclusively on agencies that charged $500 just to have a conversation. Four Seasons wants to develop a custom integration, Parker, now our CTO, announced during our weekly executive meeting. And small luxury hotel groups are lining up for preferred partnerships. We were no longer the disruptor. We were becoming the establishment. My calendar filled with speaking engagements at travel industry conferences, the same ones my parents had attended for decades. I found myself at dressing rooms filled with traditional travel agents, many looking shell-shocked by the transformation of their industry. After one such panel in New York, an older woman approached me at the reception. "You don't remember me, do you?" she asked, extending her hand. "Janet Miller. I used to book my family's trips through your parents." My stomach tightened. "Of course, Mrs. Miller. The Caribbean Christmas cruises, right?" She nodded, seeming pleased to be remembered. 23 years running. Until last year, when my grandkids convinced me to try your app. She leaned closer. "Don't tell your parents, but I'm never going back." Wanderly found me a small ship adventure cruise that Thompson never mentioned. Best vacation of my life. I smiled tightly. I'm glad we could help. How are Tom and Linda doing? I imagine they must be so proud. The question caught me off guard.
Did she not know?
Was the rift between me and my parents not common knowledge in their client circle? They're adapting. I managed. The industry is changing quickly. Well, tell them Janet says hello, and that they raised one smart cookie. As she walked away, I felt a familiar pang of loss. My parents and I lived in the same industry, moved through the same circles, served some of the same customers, and yet, we existed in parallel universes that never intersected. That night in my hotel room, I did something I'd been avoiding. I searched for Thompson Travel Company online. Their website was still the same one I'd built years ago, animated GIF and all. Their Facebook page hadn't been updated in months. No Instagram. No Twitter. Digital tumbleweeds. But they were still in business. Still occupying that corner unit in the strip mall. Still serving the dwindling clientele who preferred doing things the old way. What I didn't tell Mrs. Miller, what I hadn't told anyone, was that 3 months earlier, Wanderly had quietly acquired Voyager Travel Group, the largest competitor to Thompson Travel in our hometown. We'd purchased them for their corporate client list and industry relationships, then transitioned their operations to our platform. It wasn't a move aimed at my parents. Voyager was just one of a dozen such acquisitions we'd made. Traditional agencies were struggling, selling for pennies on the dollar to digital players like us. It was business, not personal. But as I stared at the outdated website of my family's business, I wondered if they knew. If they realized that their daughter now owned the company that had been their chief rival for decades. If they understood that the future they'd laughed at was now swallowing their past. My phone buzzed with a text from our lead engineer, luxury booking engine showing 99.8% accuracy in test environment. Ready to deploy. I replied with a thumbs up emoji and returned to my search results. There, buried on page 3 of Google, was a local newspaper article from 6 months ago. Thompson Travel celebrates 50 years, faces digital challenges. The accompanying photo showed my parents standing in front of the agency, forcing smiles beneath tired eyes. The quote from my father was defiant. People will always value expertise and personal relationships over algorithms. We've weathered changes before. I closed my laptop, the blue light giving way to darkness. In San Francisco, we were celebrating growth metrics, AI breakthroughs, and celebrity clients. Meanwhile, in the strip mall where I'd grown up, my parents were fighting for survival against the very future I was helping to create. Tomorrow, I would return to our gleaming headquarters and continue building. I would sign partnership deals and approve marketing campaigns. I would push our technology further, faster. And my parents would open their agency doors to an increasingly empty waiting room, wondering where all the travelers had gone. The notification appeared while I was in the middle of a board meeting, my phone vibrating discreetly against a polished conference table. Wanderly Pro, new application, Thompson Travel Company. I must have visibly reacted because Monica, our lead investor, paused her quarterly revenue presentation. Everything okay, Mia? Fine, I said, flipping my phone face down. Please continue. But my mind was no longer on conversion metrics or customer acquisition costs. After 3 years of silence, my parents had reached out, not with a call or an email, but through a business application to use our software. Wanderly Pro was our answer to the struggling agency market. Rather than compete with every mom-and-pop travel office, we created a white-label solution allowing traditional agencies to leverage our technology under their own branding. We provided the engine. They maintained client relationships. A digital lifeboat for an analog industry drowning in technological change. The program had been successful beyond our projections. Over 600 agencies across North America now powered their operations with Wanderly Pro. Many had been in business for decades, run by industry veterans who'd finally accepted that adaptation was the only path to survival. And now, Thompson Travel Company wanted in. I excused myself immediately after the meeting, retreating to my private office with its view of the Bay Bridge. The application sat in my Wanderly Pro dashboard. Company name, Thompson Travel Company. Years in business, 53. Primary contact, Thomas Thompson. Phone number, my father's cell, email, my mother's work address. Reason for interest, need to modernize operations to remain competitive. Looking for technology solution that maintains our customer service standards. My finger hovered over the Review Application button. Standard procedure was to assign new applicants to our agency success team who would qualify the business, demonstrate the platform, and negotiate terms. Instead, I clicked Hold Application and closed my laptop. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine in my No Valley home and pulled up Thompson Travel's financial records. As a registered business, their basic filings were public. What I saw confirmed what I had suspected. Revenue down 62% over 3 years. Staff reduced from 6 full-time employees to just my parents. a lien against their commercial property for late rent payments. They weren't just struggling, they were on the verge of collapse. I opened a secure folder on my personal drive, one even Parker didn't know existed. Inside were files I'd been collecting, small agency acquisition templates, valuation models, transition plans. For 3 years, I'd been preparing for this moment, though I'd never admitted it to myself. I'd always assumed I would eventually buy my parents' agency. Not out of sentimentality or reconciliation, but because it was the clean, logical conclusion to our divergent paths. I would absorb Thompson Travel into Wanderly, preserve what was valuable and modernize the rest. My parents would get a fair payout and a dignified exit from an industry that had left them behind. But I'd imagined it happening on my terms, approaching them from a position of undeniable success when they could no longer pretend that my path had been a mistake. I'd imagined them acknowledging, finally, that I had been right. This application flipped the script. They were coming to me, hat in hand, seeking the very technology they dismissed as a passing fad. They needed Wanderly to survive. I picked up my phone and hovered over my mother's contact. Again, I couldn't bring myself to call. Instead, I opened my email and composed a brief message to our operations team. Hold all communications regarding Thompson Travel Company, application for Wanderly Pro. I'll handle this account personally. Then I booked a flight home for the following week. The strip mall looked shabbier than I remembered. Thompson Travel occupied the same corner unit, its faded blue awning sagging slightly on one side. I parked my rental car, a luxury SUV that felt conspicuous in this setting, and checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My hair was shorter now, styled by someone who charged more for a cut than my parents had once paid for a month of utilities. My blazer was tailored, my watch expensive, but understated. I looked like what I was, a successful tech executive, not the daughter who had once alphabetized brochures in the back room. The bell above the door still jingled when I pushed it open. The office was empty except for my mother, who sat behind the counter typing laboriously on a computer that appeared to be the same one from when I'd left. She didn't look up immediately. "I'll be with you in just a moment," she said, her voice exactly as I remembered it. When she finally raised her eyes, the recognition didn't come all at once. It spread across her face in waves: confusion, disbelief, shock, and something else I couldn't identify. "Mia," she whispered, half rising from her chair. "Hello, Mom." "We didn't know you were," she stammered. "Coming." I finished for her, my voice cool and professional. "I'm here to discuss your application for Wanderly Pro." My father emerged from the back office, likely having heard my voice. He stopped abruptly in the doorway, his expression hardening. He'd lost weight, and his hair had gone completely gray. "What application?" he asked, looking at my mother. The tension in the room thickened. Of course, he didn't know. My mother had submitted the request without telling him. "I applied for that software," she admitted quietly. "The one Mia's company makes. For agencies." His face flushed. "Without discussing it with me? After everything." "After everything what, Dad?" I interrupted. "After I built exactly what I said I would? After Wanderly became the industry's standard while you two refused to even acknowledge its existence." He turned to me, jaw clenched. "We don't need charity from you." "It's not charity," I replied evenly. "It's business. You applied for a business solution like hundreds of other agencies have done. I'm here to discuss the terms." I placed my leather portfolio on the counter and removed a tablet, opening a presentation I'd personally prepared on the flight over. I outlined their business decline and our solution, then presented my conditions: a complete digital rebrand, operational restructuring, and most significantly, they would need to step down from day-to-day operations. The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face had gone from red to pale. My mother's hand covered her mouth. "You want us to surrender our life's work," he finally said, his voice barely controlled.
To you.
"No," I corrected him. "I want you to save what remains of your life's work before there's nothing left to save." "By giving you control," he pressed. "By accepting reality," I shot back. "You told me I'd fail if I left. You laughed at my vision. And now, Your survival depends on the very technology you ridiculed. My mother began to cry silently. We were wrong, she whispered. She turned to me, her eyes red but resolute. Is there no middle ground, Mia? The Showcase Agency program requires new leadership, I said firmly. Otherwise, you're welcome to apply for the standard Wanderly Pro program at full price. So that's why you're really here. Revenge, my father said. You want us to admit defeat? No, Dad. I sighed. I'm here because despite everything, I don't want to see Thompson Travel disappear. These are business terms, not personal ones. My mother placed her hand on my father's arm. They exchanged a look, the silent communication of a long marriage, and something passed between them. We'll need time to consider, my mother said finally. I nodded and gathered my tablet. The offer stands for 2 weeks. I placed a business card on the counter. My direct line, should you have questions. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. My parents stood in the window of Thompson Travel, watching me leave, again. But this time, I wasn't walking away from their world. This time, I was offering to bring them into mine. On my terms. 10 days later, an email arrived from the generic Thompson Travel account. We accept your terms. When can we begin the transition? No greeting. No signature. Just 8 words of capitulation. I forwarded it to our agency success team with instructions to prepare the paperwork, then booked another flight home. This time, I brought reinforcements. Ria, our data wizard, and Cameron, our agency transition specialist. Both had been briefed on the sensitivity of the situation, though neither knew the full history between me and the founders of Thompson Travel Company. We arrived unannounced on a Tuesday morning. The agency appeared closed, blinds drawn, lights dim, but the door was unlocked. Inside, cardboard boxes were stacked against walls, and the filing cabinets stood open, half-emptied. My parents froze when they saw me standing there with 2 strangers. My mother was wrapping a ceramic lighthouse figurine in newspaper, a souvenir from Maine that had sat on her desk for as long as I could remember. We didn't know you were, she stammered. I cut in before she could finish, maintaining the professional veneer I'd carefully constructed. I'm here to discuss your request. I gestured to my colleagues. This is Ria, our Chief Data Officer, and Cameron, who specializes in agency transitions. My father emerged from the back room carrying another box. He'd aged 10 years in the 2 weeks since I'd last seen him. The proud man who had built this business, who had once told me I knew nothing about the real world, looked defeated. You could have called first, he muttered, setting down the box. We need to assess the current state of operations to develop an integration plan, I replied, ignoring his comment. Ria will need access to your booking systems and client database. Cameron will handle the operational details. My colleagues glanced between us, clearly sensing the tension. Ria shifted uncomfortably. Maybe I should start with a technical audit, she suggested, breaking the silence. Could someone show me your server setup? My mother led Ria to the back office, while Cameron began taking inventory of the physical space, leaving me alone with my father. So this is how it ends, he said quietly, looking around at the dismantled agency. 53 years of Thompson Travel, liquidated and absorbed. Not liquidated, I corrected. Transformed. Your clients will still be your clients. They'll just have better service.
He scoffed.
They'll have an app. Not the same thing. They'll have both, I said. The personal touch you've always valued, powered by technology that makes everything more efficient. He looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Is that what you tell yourself? That you're preserving something rather than replacing it? The question stung because there was truth in it. I was replacing their way of doing business. I was making their expertise obsolete, even as I claimed to be saving their legacy. I'm offering a future, I said finally. The only one available. You're enjoying this, he accused, his voice low but sharp. Watching us surrender.
No.
I sighed, suddenly tired of the pretense. I'm not enjoying any of this, Dad. Do you think I wanted it to happen this way? That I dreamed of my parents being forced to come to me because they had no other options? Then why the ultimatum? Why demand we step aside? Because you've proven you can adapt, I hissed, careful to keep my voice down so the others wouldn't hear. Every suggestion I ever made was met with resistance. Every innovation was treated as a threat. If I leave you in charge, you'll find a way to make Wanderly fail too, and then blame the technology instead of your refusal to evolve. His face flushed. We built something real, something with a human connection. You built an algorithm. I built a tool that makes human connections possible at scale, I countered. That's the part you never understood. Technology doesn't replace relationships. It enables them to thrive in a changed world. My mother returned with Ria, whose expression told me everything I needed to know about the state of Thompson Travel's technical infrastructure. Your systems are... Ria paused, searching for a diplomatic way to phrase it. Outdated. My mother finished for her. We know. Cameron rejoined us, tablet in hand. I've completed the initial assessment. We'll need a full data migration, hardware upgrades, and comprehensive staff training. He glanced around. Speaking of staff. Just us, my father said stiffly. We let the others go months ago. The reality of their situation hit me anew. They weren't just struggling, they were already in the process of closing down. They'd been packing up when I arrived. The acceptance of my offer wasn't surrender, it was a last-ditch salvation. We need to discuss the terms again, I said, surprising myself. There are options we haven't explored. My father's eyes narrowed suspiciously. What options? I turned to Ria and Cameron. Could you give us a few minutes? Once they'd stepped outside, I took a deep breath. You can stay on.
What?
My mother looked confused. In the business. Not as owners making all decisions, but as consultants. Experts. Your relationships with clients are still valuable. We can leverage that while modernizing the operation. My father looked skeptical. Why the change of heart? Because I don't want to be the person who pushes you out of what you built, I admitted. I want to be the person who helps you build something new from it. And if we still disagree on direction, he challenged. Then I have final say, I stated firmly. That's non-negotiable. But I'd rather have your expertise than discard it. My parents exchanged a look, one of those wordless communications married couples perfect over decades. We'll consider it, my mother said. But we need something in writing. I nodded. I'll have legal draw up an amendment. I paused, then added. And Dad? I didn't build Wanderly to prove you wrong. I built it because it was the right thing to do. For travelers. For the industry. Even, eventually, for places like Thompson Travel. He didn't respond with words. Instead, for the briefest moment, he placed his hand on my shoulder, the first physical contact between us in 3 years. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. It wasn't even reconciliation. But it was acknowledgement, and for now, that would have to be enough. The grand reopening of what was once Thompson Travel Company happened 6 months later. The faded blue awning was gone, replaced by a sleek storefront with digital displays showcasing destinations that updated in real time based on trending searches. Inside, the worn carpet had given way to polished concrete floors. Modern furniture and tablet stations replaced the old counter and brochure racks. Horizon Travel, powered by Wanderly, read the new sign above the door. The name had been my mother's suggestion, a nod to looking forward while honoring the legacy of a place that had helped thousands of travelers see new horizons. I stood at the back during the ribbon-cutting ceremony, watching my parents greet their longtime clients. They looked different somehow. Dad in a tailored blue blazer instead of his old tweed, Mom with a new haircut that took years off her appearance. They moved with renewed energy among the crowd, iPad in hand, demonstrating features of the Wanderly platform with surprising fluency. They're naturals, said Parker, who had flown in for the event. You'd never know they were technophobes 6 months ago. I smiled. They weren't really technophobes. They were just afraid of becoming irrelevant. The transition hadn't been smooth. There were arguments about everything from the color scheme of the new website to which legacy clients needed personal phone calls rather than automated emails. My father still insisted on calling certain bookings my special projects, keeping them partially outside the system where he could add personal touches that no algorithm could replicate. But they were learning. And more importantly, they were adapting. The compromise we'd reached was better than my original ultimatum. My parents remained as travel experience directors, a title that acknowledged their expertise while making it clear they weren't running the operational show anymore. The day-to-day management fell to Jamie, a bright Wanderly employee who had experience with traditional agencies and understood how to bridge the two worlds. Ms. Thompson. A server approached with a glass of champagne. Your father is about to make a toast. I joined the gathering crowd as my father clinked his glass. The room quieted. For over 50 years, he began, Thompson Travel helped people find their way in the world. Today, we begin a new chapter as Horizon Travel. He paused, scanning the room until his eyes found mine. None of this would be possible without the vision and persistence of my daughter, Mia. The words caught me off guard. This wasn't part of the planned remarks we'd reviewed together. When Mia told us 3 years ago that she wanted to build a travel technology company, I didn't just discourage her, I dismissed her entirely. His voice wavered slightly. It was the biggest mistake of my career and, more importantly, of my life as a father. My mother slipped her hand into mine, squeezing gently. Around us, clients who had known me since childhood watched with surprised interest. Many of them had no idea about the rift between us, or that Wanderly had been founded by the daughter of Thompson Travel's owners. Today isn't just about a new name or new technology, my father continued. It's about having the wisdom to recognize when the world is changing and the courage to change with it. He raised his glass. To Horizon Travel, to Wanderly, and to second chances. The crowd applauded as we clinked glasses. For the first time in years, I saw genuine pride in my father's eyes. Not grudging acknowledgement, but real pride. After the ceremony, as the last guest departed, I found myself alone in what had once been the planning lounge. The maps were gone, replaced by a digital wall displaying a real-time visualization of Wanderly users traveling around the globe. Thousands of tiny lights moved across continents, each representing someone whose journey was being facilitated by our technology. It's something, isn't it? My mother's voice came from behind me. It is. I agreed, watching the lights pulse and flow. Your grandfather would have hated it, she said with a small laugh. But he also would have recognized its power. I turned to face her. Do you hate it? She considered the question seriously. I hated losing control. I hated feeling obsolete. She gestured to the digital map. But this?
No.
It's beautiful in its way. Different from what we built, but beautiful. My father joined us, loosening his tie after the long event. First official day as a Wanderly showcase agency. 12 new bookings, 9 through the platform. And the other 3? I asked. The old-fashioned way, he admitted with a slight smile. Mrs. Henderson still won't use the app. Says she doesn't trust clouds to hold her vacation. We laughed together, a sound that had once been common in this space but had been absent for too long. I never wanted to destroy what you built, I said quietly. I just saw a different path forward. We know that now, my mother replied. It took us too long to see it, but we do. My father nodded, then added, I still think some things get lost in all this technology. The personal stories, the human element. That's why we need both, I said. The efficiency of Wanderly and the experience of people like you. Neither is enough alone. As we locked up the newly transformed agency that night, I realized something I hadn't considered before. Success wasn't just about proving my parents wrong or building something they couldn't match. It was about creating a future where what they had built could continue to matter, just in a different form. I opened my phone and pulled up the Wanderly dashboard. The admin view showed me every agency currently using our platform, over 800 now, including small family businesses like my parents and large corporate travel managers. Horizon Travel was just one point of light among many, but it shined with particular significance for me. Ready for dinner? My father asked, holding the door. Actually, I said, putting my phone away, I was thinking we could go to the house. I haven't seen it in 3 years. His expression softened. Your room is exactly as you left it. Your mother wouldn't let me change a thing. As we walked to our cars, I realized that what we'd created wasn't just a new business model. It was a new map for our family, one that acknowledged the past while charting a course toward a future where we could all find our place. Sometimes, the most meaningful journeys are the ones that bring you home again, changed but not unrecognizable. A traveler returning with new eyes to familiar shores.